Hi there, this is Jacob Baugh, Jacob's Ladder with Team Cardhoarder, and I'm here with an exciting new Legacy deck for you. This week, the open of choice is actually in Legacy in Baltimore, so I want to work on that format a little bit. So I wanted to try out some new ideas that have appeared with Kaladesh. This card's been basically putting up a lot of good results in Vintage. We've played with it a lot with the Eternal Weekend this past weekend. This card saw a lot of different play. I think it's definitely very good, so I wanted to give it a try in Legacy, and this is where I came to after a little bit of tinkering and trying a few different things. But this is my most recent take, and I want to give it a shot. It has a lot of new cards from Kaladesh, which I think work very well together. Reservoir is actually, this is kind of works like a storm deck, but it's all artifact based, which is pretty nice. Outcome produces a bunch of spells for you when you combine it with cheap spells, and we have plenty of those in this deck, and cost reducers, which is really nice. And it's just your win con, and it basically gives you time to set up with the additional life you build up from it over the course of the game, and it lets you play your tutors. And normally Storm has like Infernal Tutors, but you get a different kind of Infernal Tutor in Transmute Artifact, which works out pretty well. You can throw away a Grim Monolith, an extra mana source or something like that to go find your combo piece when you need it, or you can just do whatever you want. And the deck has the potential to go infinite with any of the cost reducers, which we play 8 of, to help power out outcomes and reservoirs for cheap, which is pretty nice. You can play, if you ever get 2 Sensei Divining Tops and a cost reducer, you can generate Infinite Storm, which will gain you infinite life and deal infinite damage with Reservoir, which works out pretty well, I would say. Most of the time will end any opponent's life. But you have a few other things. Inventor's Fair is another land I wanted to try for sure. We have 30 artifacts in the deck, so we should easily be able to turn this card on. And it's just another piece we can find in our mana base to take advantage of this style of deck, which is definitely a welcome addition. And then Academy Ruins to recur any of our pieces that may get destroyed or anything like that, which is definitely a nice bonus. It also stops us from getting decked if we have to win that way through like a ley line or something like that. But it's for sure a nice thing as well. We have some City of Traders for fast mana. These are mostly for the sideboard plan we have, which I think is pretty sweet that a Storm style deck can actually not get hosed by the general hate that normally beats Storm, like Trinisphere or any of those cost increasers. Well, Trinisphere still does it, but like say like any of the sphere effects that make our stuff cost more. We have so many cost reducers, we actually just fight through those majority of the time, which is pretty nice. And we aren't really affected by Chalice of the Void. Noticing we do have Chalice of the Void on our sideboard. We only have 4 converted mana cost 1 spells. Does suck losing top, but we can for sure win without it. It's not necessary to kill our opponent. It's just a nice addition to the team for sure. We have a few fetch lands to help our tops get some shuffles. We have a full set of Mox Opals, help accelerate us and hopefully work well with our outcomes. The best next Mox I could come up with, where Vintage you get the actual Moxes, where we have to deal with Mox Diamonds. If you start going off, you normally will draw a few redundant lands and you can just replay it and it won't matter too much. That's why there's only 3. I ran into some issues when I was playing 4. Pretty much, if you ever had 2, even 3 copies of it, you just never had enough lands to replay them. So they were kind of a detriment in that regard. They were just worse than a land a lot of times. So I ended up going down to 3, but I still think this kind of effect is needed in this kind of shell, which I definitely liked. And I actually have some Thoughtcast as well. Again, like I said, there's 30 artifacts, so this card normally costs as well. Like not playing Brainstorm just because of the low fetch land count for most of the reason, because I needed to play the Seed of Cyanods to increase my artifact count to make everything work out. I don't think it's that big of a downside since Thoughtcast is just a straight 2 for 1, which is really nice. And then we have Forcible to protect ourselves and fight against other, and basically not die to most other combo decks. It's really nice. But the biggest takeaway from this deck for sure is the sideboard plans. There isn't very many, like Storm normally gets beat by the permanent based hate cards. This deck doesn't really have that big of much of a problem as, say, a traditional Storm deck would have. So you actually get to play cards like Lodestone Golem in your sideboard, because your entire combo is basically artifact based. So you don't have to worry about anything like that, and you have the costumes to help. It's kind of awkward playing Helm and Lodestone Golem, but it's a post-board strategy. You will most likely board out Helm when you're boarding in the Lodestone Golems, so it's not really that big of a deal, and you can still go infinite with Ethereum Sculptor post-board, so it's a little less likely, but when Lodestone Golem's good, it's really good, so leave it at that. And we have some accelerators in Grim Monolith, which basically when you start making that card cost 1 or even 2 mana, or 1 and 0 mana, you start going to really good places with this deck. So basically making everything super cheap and basically chaining outcomes into each other with the mana sources you get from the Moxes. So it's really nice. You still get to play Chalice of the Void in the sideboard. Again, like I said, there's not very many ones in this deck, and it's a huge bonus to be able to just shut off ones in certain matchups, but it's a big bonus. There are a few permanents that you need to deal with, so we have some Echoing Truths and Wipeaways, and then some Needles and Relic effects that we can find with our Transmute artifacts in a pinch if we need to, but that's pretty much everything. Let's get to the games.